other people deal with that because their imperialism and their cultural dominance that they've put on the rest of the world really messes up how we work that out. And the one way you can work that out is establishing what your identity is to begin with. And then look at what are the cultural rules in that identity. How do we view? Because we can't just say be given an identity at birth. That is more real than anything else. It's like when life begins. Who are we? Which one of us have the power to say it begins? Only nature have that power. When death comes, we don't sit around trying to figure out, okay, I don't believe he's dead. And somebody else said, well, maybe he died yesterday. And them said, no, maybe he'll die next month while the body rots. We don't do that. We said nature has made that decision. Nature makes the decision on gender. It makes the decision on life's beginning. Now we have social issues. We have cultural issues. We have psycho-spiritual value issues that then come into play and where and how we view ourselves in terms of gender relationships. And that's the part that people have to work out both individually and as group collective on what makes sense. But for us, the African population, I don't know how we can say we can make appropriate gender decisions in a culture that puts our gender under attack for the last 500 years when we can't even make a basic decision on ethnicity or identity. Now, the only reason we may take and say we can make the gender decision because the larger dominant group that have been the oppressive institution have said, we've made the decision for you, now join in. I don't just join in. I have to figure out why I'm getting there. Zora Neale Hurston said, to be there, you've got to go there. But to go there, you've got to know there. So give me my cultural tools. Give me access to my historical tools, my cultural tools, my spiritual science, so that I can work this relationship out for myself as an African grouping on the planet so that it makes sense for me. Don't tell me you've got one foot on my neck economically, one foot on my neck politically, but you freed me to make a gender decision. I don't know how that works. Absolutely. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. And it's something that I speak about. I used to speak about more heavily. Now, just with the rapid changes and me wanting to be mindful and wise, it's one of those conversations I let rest a little bit. It's just going forward in the discussion of Black liberation, so-called revolution. What does that look like? The responsibility of Black men, Black women. I think it's a basic question and it's a basic principle about gender. However, more and more, it's kind of like we have to revisit these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Nature has determined your gender. But we act like that has no relevance anymore. And the group that's saying it has no relevance is the group that has been attacking nature from their appearance on the planet. See, people are not just attacking Black people. We're a part of nature. The group is attacking nature itself. It's attacking cosmology itself. It's attacking ecology itself. It doesn't give a damn for the environment, a damn for the ecology, nor nothing that grows in it. So the concept of naturalness is not a part of their psyche. They think they have the right to recreate anything nature has produced into the model and the motif that they want to see. And that's usually dependent on their deprivation when they look in their life's mirror, which is a question of human mutations, not even caring what it's doing to the ozone and the rest of the atmosphere, because it gives us this capital to buy creature comfort things that we desire. Mm-hmm. And we don't care how many people we murder, animals we murder, forests we murder, rivers, we polluted every river on the planet Earth. That means I'm at war with nature if I do those things. And if you're at war with nature, of course you're going to be at war with me if I'm something in nature trying to be the naturalness that nature has produced me to be. And then you want me to make decisions on gender, make decisions on equality based on what standards, whose standards, what's rule, what's study. Now we know there's a lot of stuff going on in the midst of this oppressive condition the world finds itself in. And it's not just Black folks being oppressed, white folks oppress white folks. I mean, we don't see that because we're not in that community in that way. But I work on a movie set, very big time movie set. I mean, like ABC, Disney.
Lord, bam.
And there was a beautiful young lady, but I didn't know she was a young lady, an Afro young lady who was dressed like a boy and moved like a boy, haircut like a boy. So I asked the other young man, because I didn't want to be disrespectful to the person. So I said, is that a boy or a girl? And he says, oh, she's a girl. So I'm still in a conflict because she's not considering herself to be feminine. She's being very masculine. So the only thing I could do to her is just love her enough to be courteous and respectful. But my mind, I don't know how to translate a female into a male. So I'm still treating her as a female, but with respect and kindness. And she left the film to go back to another project that she was working on with another part of the industry. And she came to me the week before. She came and said, I have a gift for you. And she has her own t-shirt lines and everything. Beautiful things. And she gave me the gift, and she gave me a very beautiful card and thanked me for my manner of interacting with her and for spending the times I spend doing what you and I are doing right now, talking about different things in the world. And that she hoped that we keep this contact. Matter of fact, she begged that I please stay in touch with her. And she approached me from her feminine self. And I mean positively feminine self, the universal mother self. And I told her, I love you in that self. Now, the things that she has to work out, I don't know how that baby got there. I don't know who raped her. I don't know who molested her. We know that with our girl children, at least 70 to 80% is raped and molested before they're 18. A lot of that happens before they're 15. A lot of it happens within members of the family or people who are associated with members of the family. And I bring this up because if we go back to the days, and Robin Walker has written on this extensively in the UK. That's the brother who wrote When We Rule, right? And Robert Williams or Robert Walker? Robert Walker. Yeah. And one discussion Robin was having, that the majority of young African women that was brought to America, they didn't bring old women to America because they wanted people who can have babies. So they brought young women to America. 90% under the age of 18. 50+% of that under the age of 13. And most of them were raped on those ships before they got here. Now you multiply that by a couple of hundred years and see what that's doing psycho-spiritually and culturally to the population. And then you wonder why there's confusion going on right now. And I coined the term post-slavery trauma syndrome to explain this process, because we, the Black men, myself included, is still doing the same thing to the Black woman, unknowingly most of the times. We call it romance and going together, and
love.
It almost all ends up in some sort of abuse. And even when we become adults, we still have not been able to translate how do you have a relationship with someone you adore and admire without crossing the line into abuse and harm. That's still a discussion our community needs to have and don't have, because a lot of that leads right back to the gender question. I've lost people I love dearly out of my family who were gay, who died from AIDS, who were ostracized. Even I didn't understand it, but I went to many of my friends and I said, tell me, we played football together. You know what I'm saying? We were in the community. How did you get from there to here? Every case was a case of abuse. Every case was a case of abuse. And then I started talking about post-slavery trauma, that we're now doing to ourselves what the enemy once did to us from day one, bringing us into the situation. How do we begin to address that so we can address, even if we're making the right decision around gender, maybe there is a change of gender once you come into this environment physiologically. But how do we even get to having that legitimate conversation without having the historical conversation that create the conditions under which we're going through these transformations? that discussion we don't have enough of.
Right.
And I speak to a lot of sisters, and I hear their stories, and sometimes they don't know I'm on the other end of the phone crying because I can't believe it. Yet I must believe it because I've seen it in my home. I remember when my big sister told me her story. You know, I must have been in my 50s. I couldn't believe it because the person who molested and raped her was someone who the family thought was the best friend the family ever had.
Mm.
You know, and I was wondering what's wrong with my sister. Why she won't go this way instead of that way? You know, in terms of the alcoholism, the drug use, and where she worked, and so. And I remember my grandma said, "You got to stick with." I said, "But I can't be hanging out at these bars." Grandma said, "No, you stay with your sister wherever she is. You better be around her." And one day she told me her pain that she was carrying all those years. And I've heard that same pain from someone. I went all the way there because it isn't as simple as just talking about gender identification. There's history that leads up to the calls to question. Why we even have the calls to question. I'm not smart enough to know what genetic stuff may be going on. I'm only talking about the psychosocial stuff that's even loaning itself to play. We know that there is, at least in the European community and studies that I've done with others, 60,000 hermaphrodites born almost every year. And this is going back with them doing the study and following this back for almost 50 years. And we know that the doctors have been making decisions without even consulting families on whether they make those persons male or female. Okay.